All right, next question. Right here in the front.
It's not the Chamber of Commerce question asked 2 weeks ago. Okay. 19 states have passed a resolution for an Article 5 convention for proposing amendments. Tomorrow is the big day up the road here in the full House to be the 20th House to do it, with the Senate still in question. How do you feel about the 3 topics, the limiting the size and scale of government, term limits, and the ability to propose amendments specifically to 3 topics in order to be able to take the power back to the states? And because they're never going to do that in Washington, they're never going to vote themselves to remove power from themselves.
So let me answer that question in 2 parts, okay? First is Article 5 convention. I'd say do it. It's going to be good for the country. I don't know that that's something what's going to come out of it, but I think that that is a space that allows us to have the conversation that I care about. What does it mean to be American today? We live in a 1776 moment today. This is not about red versus blue in the year 2023. This is about the 1776 question that unleashed this nation at places not too far from where we're sitting today 250 years ago. We're overdue for that conversation. And you want to have an Article 5 version of it? Well, you know what? That's internal to the Constitution. That's within the system and how it's supposed to work. I'd say have it. I'd like to be there, and let's actually have that debate in the open. Now, on the specifics of the issues, I like them, but they're not thinking big enough, right? If we're going to take the trouble of getting that thing together, why do you want sunset clauses just for elected officials? I like that as much as the next guy, but for the administrative agencies, right? I think that the permanent state's the problem because, I mean, states like this one, you got 400 representatives, great. In the assembly, awesome. They got to come back to you every 2 years. They get paid $125 or whatever. Sounds like self-government to me. It's a pretty good system. But we don't have that for the cancerous bureaucracy that actually runs the show. So I would just be a little bit more, if we're going through the trouble of convening it, let's be a little bit more ambitious about what we actually use it to achieve. But, you know, it has to go through the ratification process, et cetera. So the chances that something that comes out of that actually get passed is low, which is almost another reason to just say, great, let's just go ahead and do it, because it sets the bar high for the conversation we have about rediscovering those American ideals. So that's a great question. I haven't been asked it again. Ask every other candidate the same thing. You have me on the record. I'd say yes, let's do it, and for the reason I said. I wonder what, whoever here's next, tell me what they say, and we'll force that debate on the stage.
All right, so Vivek, can I follow up on that? So
yeah.
if this is a 1776 moment, but you're running against woke culture, so you
Wrong, among other things.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But what I'm saying is there is a dominant woke culture, right?
There is, right? Yeah.
So it's a 1776 moment in a 1619 project culture.
That's actually pretty well said. I like that.
So an Article 5 convention lets in everybody, people who want the 1776 revolution and people who think the 1619 project is peachy and want to impose that. So the original Constitution, they were sent to amend the Articles of Confederation. That was their task. They were strictly bound to that, and they ignored it entirely and gave us a totally new document. So yes, they did. So, all right, fair enough. We'd agree to disagree. Okay. The point is, you read the papers at the time, a lot of people thought they got something that they weren't sent there to give. So how do you control this? Once you open the Article 5 convention, right, it's out of control. It's the people. And whatever the people want, they're going to be able to do, right?
Well, let me just take the last. I don't give a bad sound effect the last part. I just want to repeat what you said. Whatever the people want, they get to do.
That's right.
That doesn't sound too bad to me.
Good or bad, right? So
that doesn't sound too bad. But I think that here's the deeper point. Okay, I think there's a really important question embedded in there. I think there's some technicals on the history that I would also take issue with, because
sure.
Many people have sent people to Washington, D.C., and every year and every month we get back things that we didn't think we sent them there to do. But this isn't, the point here is not a constitutional history lesson.
Yeah.
The point is the spirit of the question you asked, which I think is a good one, and one we ought to acknowledge in the conservative movement. You have to let everyone in, and all views get aired. So I'm in for that bargain.
All right.
I think that we have to live in a culture where you're free to speak your mind freely as long as I get the same courtesy in return. But the problem today is that there's an asymmetry in how that standard is actually applied. I'll just give you one example, and corporate America is one of the spheres of American life that I know well, okay? Let's just take this censorship culture. This is a real debate on the right now. Okay, so let's have it. Let's air it. Let's get into the thick of it. Which is this debate about, you got the Sununus of the world, your boy here, who says that, we want free market principles, small government guy, government should stay out of these affairs. He's been critical of Ron DeSantis in Florida, who's using state power. I think that's too low resolution. Let's get into the details, okay? What I think we see in the actions of these private companies today is that it's actually not the invisible hand of the free market. It is just the invisible fist of government hiding behind the scene. I'll give you 2 examples of that. I'll give you 3 examples of that to make the point. One is tech censorship. Conservatives need to stop calling it big tech censorship because that lends itself to this reductionist Sununu versus DeSantis debate. You want to see the solution? Let's call it what it actually is. It is government tech censorship, where government is using, thank you, they're using private companies to do through the back door what government could not get done through the front door under the Constitution. If it is state action in disguise, then the Constitution still applies. That's not the use of state power to coerce a private company. It is rolling back the federal government from actually coercing private companies as they are today. That's example 1. Example 2. Viewpoint discrimination, even in the offline world. Okay, how many employees have been fired for wearing the hat of the wrong political candidate? Okay, for saying the wrong thing on social media, for attending the wrong political rally? Okay, countless numbers over the last several years. Now, I believe that political expression should be a civil right in this country if you're also going to protect race, sex, sexual orientation, religion, and national origin on the same footing. Now, they will say that that's state interference with private market decisions. Well, it turns out that's not true. First of all, you have to apply the standards even-handedly. If you love the free market, then by God, love the free market, but don't have these other constraints on the free market. Secondly, those constraints are what created viewpoint-based discrimination. I can prove that to you. Okay, the civil rights prohibitions on, say, race or gender have been construed so broadly to mean that you're committing a civil rights violation even if you share a view that is considered creating a hostile work environment for a member of the protected class. Well, how do you create a hostile work environment? Is by expressing a viewpoint. So what do we see there? The law has created the very conditions for the rampant viewpoint discrimination we see while leaving political viewpoints unprotected. This makes no sense. This is senseless. And then the third example I'll give you is with the climate agenda, okay? I'm friendly with the governor and others in Alaska, okay? You know who loves the environment more than most Americans? Alaskans. You know who wants to drill for oil in Alaska more than most people? Is the Alaskans. You want to know why they can't? It's not because it's illegal. It's because no major bank is lending to drilling projects in Alaska. Why is that? Well, turns out there's this thing that John Kerry made every major bank CEO sign. It's like a climate pledge, a North America net zero alliance. I will remind you, banks are not charitable institutions. I want to know what they got in return. Okay, this is the same uniparty that served you the 2008 financial crisis and its aftermath. But if you just take a look at all of that, that then makes this other debate look childish by comparison between, oh, should we use more state power? It's the kind of thing that Chuck Todd would like for the Republican Party to be squabbling over. I heard his Meet the Press or whatever show he has on Sunday interview this last week, trying to reduce it to those two camps. And sometimes I think Republicans fall into that trap because They're just reciting whatever slogans they memorized or whatever talking points their binders gave them without actually getting into the essence of what's actually happening. And I think if we get to the essence of what's actually happening, we can channel the spirit of Reagan, not by imitating the words he uttered, but by channeling that spirit to address the unique challenges we face today. And for me, as US president, part of the pitch of my candidacy is that I will do that for you. I can do that for you. I am running for president to do that for this country. And I encourage you, right now, I'm only going to ask for your vote about 10 months from now. Right now, I'm just asking you to engage with this vision, with these ideas. Make sure you press every other candidate on these ideas too. And by this time next year, I predict you will know who actually understands what they're doing and who will actually get that job done. But for now, that's a humble ask I'll make in the meantime.
I'm going to get to the next question, but I just want to make a plug for the New Hampshire primary right now, because you said Chuck Todd or whatever on Meet the Press or whatever show he has. You've been on Fox News a lot. You could do this campaigning, for the presidency on Chuck Todd's show and on national media, but you are here talking to voters one-on-one in New Hampshire, and that's pretty awesome. The center of gravity is in presidential politics, not in D.C., thanks to states like New Hampshire.
Amen.
And then I want to just say that the bartender is lonely, just so you know.
Croc TV.